Robert Zemeckis' Forrest Gump and Peter Weir's The Truman Show are two well-established films from the late 20th century that are considered cult classics, even 2 decades after their release. Contrary to many of the films released before this era, both films are lighthearted, full of plot twists, and place an emphasis on the storyline of the main character. The 1990s were a happier time in history, and the cinema from this era reflected this. For context, this was the first time in a century where individuals didn't have to worry about an impending war, as the Cold War had finally ended. As a result, many individuals were focused on self-growth, spending time with their families, and living their best lives, which are elements that many filmmakers incorporated in their films. In addition, the pop culture industry was flourishing, and new revolutionary technology was being utilized in film. Through several clips in this video, we'll examine the similarities and differences of Forrest Gump and The Truman Show, and see how these films utilize cinematography, writing, and special effects to create the most iconic films of the 90s. First, let's examine the cinematography in Forrest Gump and The Truman Show. By the late 20th century, directors and filmmakers had a great knowledge on how to film a scene to accurately portray what they wanted to audiences. One similarity in both movies is the use of close-ups. Both of these movies place a great emphasis on developing sympathy for the main character, and therefore are necessary for the audience to constantly see the emotion on the actors' faces. The use of a camera tracking the movement of Forrest and Truman are also frequently used to illustrate the liveliness of both characters' lives. However, there are also some key differences in the editing of both films, such as the scale of each shot. Forrest Gump utilizes more consistent medium angle shots for a professional and consistent feel throughout the film. The film's aim is to be coherent, as it links together the memories of Forrest's life into one touching film. On the contrary, The Truman Show alternates between closer angled shots and farther angled shots to give the film an unpredictable and more interpersonal feel. The purpose of these shots are to mimic the format of a 90s reality TV show, which accurately portrays Truman's struggles throughout the movie. Second, let's examine the writing in Forrest Gump and The Truman Show. The plots between these two movies could not be more different. Despite this, there are some similarities with the writing and casting of the show. Both films star incredibly popular actors, being Tom Hanks and Jim Carrey, and both plots revolve around the development of their respective characters. Cinema before this decade was often centered around social issues, romance, and extravagant plots. But in both of these films, the plot is based on the personal development of a single character. Therefore, the audience is inclined to become more attached to the main characters and vouch for them, creating a genre of film vastly different to what audiences were used to. The personalities of Truman and Forrest are also written very similarly, both being naive men with hearts of gold. And it definitely helps that Tom Hanks and Jim Carrey are gifted at playing likable characters. Lastly, both films also use the latest innovative technology to give their respective films an unforgettable touch. For instance, in Forrest Gump, special effects, such as CGI, were utilized to create violent explosions in the Vietnam War scenes. This breakthrough in technology was astounding because audiences had never seen a vision of war depicted so accurately through screen before. Similarly, in the ending scene of The Truman Show, the use of a green screen makes it possible for Truman to exit the world of television he's been imprisoned in his entire life. The use of special effects makes it possible to portray unrealistic scenes we wouldn't be able to imagine, such as stepping out of a door in the sky, as Truman did here. Not to mention, the breakthrough in sound in film gave both movies incredible soundtracks, and the high definition of each film made each experience more pleasant for the viewer. In conclusion, the revolution of the film industry in the 1990s was a result of a more politically stable era, where audiences and directors looked for peace and self-development in the media. The utilization of well-executed shots, more character-focused films, and better technology led to a breakthrough in cinema, resulting in many well-made films that are still relevant today, such as Forrest Gump and The Truman Show.